Hello, listeners. This is Freelance Friday with Vaycasey, a podcast all about freelancing through the opinions and experience of current full-time freelancers. And today on the show, we've got John Nofsinger, a friend of mine, freelancer, and agency member personnel. I don't know how you would describe that.
It's accurate.
What title you would give yourself on that, but you want to introduce yourself, kind of talk about what you do a little bit?
Yeah. My name's John. I work for an agency here in Dallas, and I also do freelance on the side.
So tell me a little bit let's talk about, I guess, because I know this already. So you freelanced before working for an agency for a while. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you got into freelancing and were able to get work doing that?
Yeah, totally. Well, it's kind of weird. I kind of fell into it. So I was went to the Art Institute in Tampa. I'm from Tampa. Lived there for 13 years. And I was always getting people saying, "Oh man, can you do this graphic for me? Can you do a logo for me?" And I was like, I should probably start getting paid for this, because I was doing it just for free and stuff. And so I just kind of started doing it kind of full time, and just kind of happenstance, really.
So did you ever, in that process, did you ever come a point whenever did all your work come from inbound stuff, like people reaching out to you, or were you going and getting jobs and seeking out clients?
Yeah. Well, totally. At first, it was a lot of people just kind of reaching out to me, and then I started using some of those sites where you can be a freelancer, and I can't remember the names of them, but I signed up for those and got some jobs, and those kind of opened doors to other people, and I guess word of mouth, and that kind of started the snowball kind of thing.
Do you how many? I mean, did you do a lot of stuff on there? Because I know there's a few websites like that. There's a couple that come to mind: 99 Designs, Fiverr, Elance. There's a few. There's a couple of them off the top of my head. I know what was. Is it something you would recommend doing?
I think it can be cool, yeah, especially when you're first starting out and you need some work. When you first start out, you're kind of take anything you can get. I don't really do that now, but we actually turn down jobs now. But no, yeah, I think it's good, especially if you're new to freelancing, and you can just kind of learn. I think it's important to learn clients, different types of clients, and who you enjoy working with, and those kind of personalities. And that was a way for me to learn different personality types.
What did you find most helpful, or what were some of those helpful things you found as far as knowing whether a potential client was someone that you wanted to work with or didn't want to?
Yeah. I think when they were super concerned about the money, about the cost up front, it's kind of a red flag. And also, when they send me a whole bunch of sometimes this is good, sometimes this is bad. When they send me a whole bunch of stuff that somebody else had done, and they kind of rip them apart. Well, this is what so-and-so did for me, and I don't really care for him. And I'm just oh man, am I going to be another victim on the list? So I guess those are red flags for me.
So then, how long did you do the freelance thing full-time for?
Oh man. God. I think I was doing it for 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
And then from there, I guess, can you walk me through going from that into now working with an agency, and what did that look like, and what ultimately chose you drove you to choose that path?
Yeah, so doing the freelance thing, I started working for a mega church in Tampa. Worked there for maybe 6 years, and I don't know if you know anything about working at mega churches, but you work a lot.
Yeah, I know a bit about that.
It was intense.
It's a lot of work and not as much play usually.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And I was working something 12-hour days, and I remember just getting really burned out. But I met this kid who was in high school at the time, and he was kind of volunteering there, and he was like, "Oh, I like graphic design websites and stuff," and I was like, "Oh, cool." And so he kind of became my volunteer. I was like,
right.
I have a volunteer. It's weird, but so he helped me out in the printing. Everything was printed in house. It was a full studio there, which was pretty awesome. But this kid, his name's Tyler. Actually, we stayed in touch, and a couple years ago, he called me and said, you were instrumental in my life and all this stuff. And he's like, I want to start a freelance business. And I was like, oh, I kind of used to have one. And so we kind of combined forces. And so our freelance business today is kind of both of our things combined. So it's kind of crazy.
What are you guys doing? Like, what kind of work are you?
We
services
do,
you're providing?
like graphic design, web design, and then like video and
Okay.
photography.
Okay. So a little bit across the board.
Yeah.
So do you like? What of that do you handle, and what does he handle?
I usually do most of like the logo, graphic design, and web design, and then he's a really great videographer, and he does all the video and photography. But he also helps with websites and stuff too. So.
Okay. Have you found as far as, because I feel like you're a little bit more spread out as far as having a multiple service offering versus the like being focused in and having like a one, like I do, like for me, like I do video production.
Right.
And that's the thing that I like brand myself as doing in that vein. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's like more beneficial to spread out more or to like focus in on something?
I definitely think it's good to focus in on something. I think the only reason, I mean, ours is kind of that way because it's two of us. So I'm really focused on my thing and he's focused on his thing. So it's kind of cool when you have a partner because you can kind of broaden that way, but you're still just focusing on your individual things that you like to do.
Right.
So it's kind of cool. And, we help each other out. It's like, help me with this. And we work out the monies between each other. So it's kind of cool.
It's always going to be, I feel like a little bit of a challenging area sometimes when it comes to money, especially because some of this stuff, as far as freelance work, I feel like it's hard to figure out how to price it a lot of times. Like I've been doing it full time for like 5 years now. And I mean, it's still something that while I have a much better grasp on how to price things, it's still really hard at some extent to go like, is this the right number? Is this a good amount?
Oh, no, it's definitely it. I mean, we get a lot of websites and they're like, oh, well, ballpark this for us. And we're like, well, we need to know what content is going to go in this website because it could have, 3 pages, 18 pages. Like, so, it's definitely hard.
Now, did you, it's interesting you talk about that. There's a lot of things and it brings up an interesting point. That's something I kind of wanted to talk about is like those kind of requests where people hit you up and they're like, hey, so what would it cost to do like this thing? Like, what would it cost to do a 30-second commercial? Or like, I want to do this video. And there's just so many variables involved that you need to know, and you need to know like what questions to ask to be able to get answers for those things in order to figure out like what it's going to cost.
Yeah.
How did you learn what questions to ask? Or like, I mean, have you always just like thought about that stuff, or what's?
No, it's weird. Well, yes and no. Like, I think for us, it was just blatant, transparent honesty. And we were like, okay, you want a website? Well, this is what hosting is going to cost. We don't charge anything for that. Like, we give them the straight up what. We use DreamHost. Okay. Here's what DreamHost is going to cost
just pass through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Similar. That's how I do like gear rentals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I just show them like the cost of this is what it would take to run a website, And so we usually start like that, and then we start getting feedback. Oh, okay. Well, then we don't want this. We want this, and it kind of opens them up more. And I think they really appreciate that we're like showing them, hey, we're bringing the veil up and showing you. So I don't know.
Like it's not some like hidden thing like you're trying to just charge kind of whatever you want, but there's actually like a reason behind behind that stuff. Do you whenever you price and stuff, do you find yourself with that like leaning more on the side of like pricing on like a time basis, or is it like a project base or like value base, or what do you base like a pricing structure off of?
Yeah, I think ours is definitely on product and also, timing, that we're making sure that we're not killing ourselves and not, getting compensated for it. We always kind of go above and beyond. That's just kind of our style. And sometimes we, make sure we have it polished, even though we're not billing for it. That's just kind of us. I mean, we're so hardcore. We kind of do that. But, and I can kind of do that because it's not my full-time gig.
Right.
So a lot of times,
flexibility.
Yeah, Tyler will be like, hey man, I got this huge project, blah, blah, blah. Can you, help me polish it? And I'll just be like, all right, dude, I'll help you polish it. So it's kind of cool.
So if I'm a freelancer just starting out and come to you and say, John, I have this project and I don't know how to price it out. I've never been asked to give a quote on a project before. What do you tell me? How do you help guide me through that process?
Oh man.
And there's not a wrong answer here, right or wrong. And this is your opinions.
Yeah.
Based on your experience. So kind of like what you think.
Gotcha.
What you would do.
Man. I guess it depends on the project, but like I'd say for an example, like a logo design, I tend to say I either do like a flat rate or I'll do a hourly, but I kind of depend that on the client. So if the client's coming to me and I kind of get this, you kind of have to fill them out and you think, I think that they don't really know what they want. And it's kind of like, I know it when I see it. So I can kind of say they're going to want a lot of revisions. And so usually if it's that case, an hourly would be better, more beneficial to you, because if you do the flat rate, you're going to be stuck with doing unlimited revisions unless you upfront set those boundaries and say, well, here's your flat rate and you get this many revisions. So I think your pricing has to be beneficial to your health and you know, and your state of mind. And yeah, I mean, ultimately you have to support yourself, and especially if you're a full-time freelancer, I mean, that's your livelihood. And Tyler he's full-time freelancer, so I understand the struggle is real. So.
Yeah, it's it can be very challenging, that's for sure. So then, like, going from so you said you freelanced for 3 years, and then you started working at the agency. Did you go straight from freelancing into the agency?
Yeah, well, no, I was.
Or were you at the church between the two?
I was in the church between the two, exactly. Yeah, so I was still doing the freelancing on the side. And then I was working full-time at the church. My wife actually got a job here in Dallas. She's a flight attendant. So we moved here, and I was working remotely, still working for the church, and started getting crazy cabin fever. I remember when it hit me, when I realized I needed to get out of the house, is when I was at like Whole Foods, and I was just like talking to the cashier, and I was like, oh my God. And my wife was just staring and looked at me, she's like, you need to get a job. You need to get out of the house. So I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. So
you get to a point where you just like, I just need to talk. I got to be around somebody. It isn't, and I feel like
I couldn't afford a co-working space.
Yeah,
they're
I mean,
expensive, man.
it's worth it sometimes. I think if you're at the right spot and know how to take advantage of it, but that's a whole beast in itself sometimes with that stuff. Let's see, what else should we talk about here? Now that you've working at the agency, you're still doing freelance stuff.
Yeah. Tyler does most of it. I usually just help out every now and then with some.
So then I guess now working at the agency, I didn't know this until we talked yesterday when I was texting you that I'm the only freelancer that you ever worked with since you've been at the agency.
Yeah, it's true.
So it's kind of put the damper on some of the questions I wanted to ask, right? Because you're not going to have experience on that stuff. But I guess, like, from your experience, if you were vetting new freelancers to work with, or seeking out freelancers to work on projects, what are some of the things that you look for, and how do you determine whether somebody may or may not be a good fit to work with the agency you're with, and or y'all's clients?
Yeah, I think, that is a tough one. Usually you want a really good personal relationship with somebody. I know that portfolio, that matters. But sometimes portfolios can be faked. I hate to say that, but I've seen it.
I've seen it too.
Yeah. So I think ultimately somebody that has a drive and like has a passion, and you can kind of feel that out, especially when you talk to them on the phone. I like talking to people on the phone. I don't have any social media. I'm like a guy that says, I'll talk to you face to face, call me. I just kind of fill them out and talk to people. Me and Tyler have actually brought in people to help us, and it's the same way with that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
With those people that you've brought in on your projects, are those freelancers people that you have sought out to bring in, or did they approach you first? Like, how are those relationships formed?
Yeah. Well, for me, it was a content writer, and it's crazy just how things just kind of happen. He just hit me up one day. This guy I hadn't talked to in years. I used to be in a band with him back in the day, and he was like, oh man, I wrote a script and we're making a pilot and all this stuff. And I was like, I need a content writer for this website. So it's just kind of, I was like, would you be interested in any of that? Because I read a script and it was like really, really good. So yeah, it's crazy. I think when when you see something that's quality, you're like, man, and you just want to like work with people like that. So it's pretty crazy. I mean, like, man, I saw your photos and I was like, yeah, this guy. So, same.
And it's been fun. It's been fun working together, right? And
Yeah,
I feel
cool.
like part of the, I really believe part of the reason that we've had a successful relationship, or I've had a successful relationship with the agency you're with so far, has been because of the relationship. Because I feel like I can come and hang out with you guys, and like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, we did
you
hang
and
out.
I, yeah, you and I and Steve and one of the other guys that works there went and grabbed lunch one day, and I mean, honestly, part of the reason I did that was to try to like further that relationship.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I mean, like, that's the way things work. Like, it's fun to do
Right.
business and work with people that you have good relationships with. And so, like, if you find those people and you just continue to develop those relationships,
It's true.
it tends to work out.
Doors open.
Doors tend to open.
Yeah.
You get to have fun working with people, and it's like wins all the way around. And it's great.
Well, I think what helped us is that Tyler was living in Nashville at the time. He was a drummer for a Christian rapper. And I think they're on tour right now with the Newsboys, actually, right now. He was like, texted me the other day. We were working on a website. He's like, oh, I have my laptop on stage right now. I have to go. And I was like, okay, do your thing,
Newsboys.
man.
Shout out to the 90s.
Yeah, man. So, yeah. I mean, and, you know, and he being there with like the music industry and stuff, there's a lot of guys. Like, we get some musicians that need album covers. We just did one for an artist. And so that's pretty cool. And so,
I hear that can be
networking,
a good industry, or a good...
Yeah.
I have
cool.
another friend I went up in Nashville that does that and says that that's like something that's in like good designers for bands and musicians is something that's like always.
Yeah, and it's fun because you get some pretty good freedom with album covers.
I would imagine so, especially because I feel like the people that would come to you, like, they're musicians and they're good at that stuff. But they're not necessarily good or might not know anything about the design stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, here, you go do your thing.
Right.
Help me.
make it look cool, you know.
Yeah. What I don't know, man, what else you want to talk about freelancing wise? What do you think people should learn? What kind of experience and opinions do you have that you can help share
I
with
think
new freelancers?
self-discipline, man, was I mean, I guess I've always been like a disciplined person. But it wasn't until I started running and I became a runner that I kind of gained that physical discipline, and it kind of gave me like mental discipline as well. And it helped me to be more on task, just awake. Because, man, sometimes you're like, especially when you're working from home, like, it's hard to be disciplined. Like, you just want to do all these distractions and PlayStation, this, you know.
Gotta clean the dishes.
Gotta clean the
dog
dishes.
Yeah, I gotta do
Chores.
laundry.
Yeah, man.
What was that noise?
Yeah, oh my God.
Did somebody knock on the door? I didn't.
No, it's true.
All these things all the time.
So yeah, self-discipline was huge. Yeah, I find people that maybe they're not freelancers, but have just kind of like, older people that can be like mentors with you. I know for me, like for financially, like, doing taxes and stuff like that, that was another big thing. Just finding people that have been there, done that kind of thing, and kind of walk you through it. My cousin started his own business. Several businesses, and so you kind of like walk me through some do's and don'ts and all that good stuff.
It's so helpful to have.
Oh yeah.
I was about to ask you something in my mind. Just like it's gone. It
Oh,
just
man.
left my head.
It's Monday.
It is Monday. Freelance Friday on a Monday, everybody.
Oh yeah.
What
Secrets revealed.
what oh, I know what it was. Okay, so now now working at the agency, if like, or so either with, is it okay to say the name of the agency you're at?
Yeah, you can.
Jackson Spalding. Okay.
Yeah.
So with Jackson Spalding, or with your, I guess, I mean, basically you and Tyler are basically like a small, like a boutique agency.
Yeah.
So what, if I'm a new freelancer, I'm wanting to like develop relationships and work with agencies, what do you, in your opinion, your experience, what's the best way to start trying to develop those relationships and kind of get a foot in the door with those places?
Man, I think one good thing is to like go to like design conferences. I know they just had one. I think it was Circles or something. It was in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Places like that, man, can be a really good place to networking, man. It really just comes down to like meeting people, talking to people. You could go to like dribble meetups, which are pretty cool. and you can meet a bunch of designers and a lot of freelancers actually on Dribble. I've actually got a lot of work on Dribble, which is kind of crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
How so? Like, how does that stuff come through for you?
The way Dribble's set up is that people can contact you. Like, there's a little button that says "Hire Me," and so they can click on it and send you a message and say, "Hey, we're working on this. Are you interested? We saw your portfolio." And sometimes it's great, sometimes it's bad. I actually found out about Jackson Spalding through Dribble.
Really?
Yeah, I was like following one of the artists on Dribble, and his design's really sick. And I saw he was a part of this group, and it was like a JS Creative, and I was like, "Oh, what's this?" And I clicked on it, and it went to the to their website, and I was like, And so I just clicked on it, and it said, graphic designer hiring in Dallas. And I was like, what? I was like, man, I could work with this guy. And like, so like, yeah, I like applied.
And now you're doing it. How long have you been with Jackson Spalding for?
Oh man, a year.
And enjoying it. I'm taking it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really awesome. Best place I've ever worked.
I guess our first project we did together has it been a year?
Yeah, man.
It's been close, if not.
Yeah, definitely. We did the photo shoot.
Yeah, we did some photos of they wanted some photos for their website.
Yeah.
They have an office in Atlanta, an office in Dallas, and there's a third office, right?
And Athens.
Athens, that's right. And interesting how the whole thing came about for me. My friend Rob Howe, who was on an episode several weeks back with Recreation Dallas, the interview with Recreation Dallas, has been a friend of mine for 20 plus years, and worked at Splash Media in Addison.
Crazy.
And one of his managing partners, Sterling, knows one of the guys. I forget who it is.
Was it Mason?
Is there Brian?
There is a Brian. I think there's a few
Mason.
Brians.
I think there's a couple of people that Sterling knows at Jackson Spalding in Atlanta. And I guess they needed somebody in Dallas and reached out to Sterling, and Sterling knew me because I'd done some work with Splash through knowing Rob. And then
it's like the
referred me on.
Kevin Bacon thing.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, and so it's cool. And so now I've gotten to work with Recreation Dallas, that agency. I've got to do some work with you guys, Jackson Spalding. And I mean, I've started to meet some other people through that stuff. I imagine it's just like those relationships kind of keep budding, and like it's interesting how it works out, man. But it's all been through relationships and communication. And I mean, it makes me think of the importance of relationships, even like not burning bridges. There's been several times where I've had jobs come through with people that I really just wanted to tell to fuck off because they pissed me off about something. And I was just like, I bit my tongue. And it's just like, this is not, maybe I'm right, but there's a saying my dad used to always say was sometimes it's better to do the right thing than to be right. And there's sometimes in these situations where it's like, okay, the right thing to do is to just like walk away and not say anything.
Yeah, man.
Leave the bridge intact. Maybe just like don't go across that bridge anymore.
Right. There's trolls under that.
Yeah. And then like 6 months later, it kind of passes and something comes up and like a job comes out of it. And I'm like, man, I'm really glad I didn't burn that bridge right now.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Yeah. Well, and I think we got some good stuff. Is there anything else any like takeaways in the last like 20 or 30 seconds? Anything else that you haven't talked about you think people should know?
Oh, man.
In the freelance world.
In the freelance world, do what you love. I mean, man, if you just do what you love, man, you're gonna keep doing it, and you're gonna keep getting work. And I think don't get discouraged. I used to look at this quote all the time when I was doing freelance. I mean, I still look at it. Comparison is the thief of joy. And you can get on Dribble, Behance, and all these places. You can see a bunch of stuff, and you can start going, "Oh my God, that stuff's so much better," or something. But I mean, you just can't compare yourself, man. You gotta do what you do, and you are you. So they gotta stay true to who they are. And I know I try to. It's tough, but
yeah, but it's working out for you.
Yeah.
So. Well, where can people find you and your work and all this stuff online?
Let's see. I don't have any social media, so.
So no social media, guys. There will be no social media links in this week's show notes for John.
You can look, Tyler and I's thing is bravefoxes.com.
And you do have an Instagram for that, right?
I think all those he set those up.
But he does all that stuff.
Brave Foxes,
okay.
So, yep.
Well, I'll get all that stuff for you, and we'll have them in the show notes at vaycasey.com/freelance Friday. And
I could put my Dribble on there.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get links to his Dribble and any other places. John's got some really cool illustrations and designs. Definitely worth checking out. Some very inspirational work there. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. For all you listeners out there, thanks so much for listening in. If you found this show, this episode, or any of them helpful or beneficial to you, if you would help me and help the other people in the world that need to hear this stuff, find it by leaving just a simple and honest rating and review on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you found this podcast. Also, feel free to share the links online if you would, and follow on social media, all those things. Thanks so much. See you next week. Freelance Friday is a vaycasey production. Vaycasey is a full-service video production company based in Dallas, Texas. Vaycasey, big video production value, freelance agility and scale.